Okay, the robot says I'm live, so I'm going to take that as the truth, and we'll see here. Welcome back, folks. Thanks for tuning in if you're tuning in live. If you're watching after the fact, thanks for watching after the fact. Tonight, we are back in action with our docs implementation for CheatCode. So if you don't remember last time, we actually have gotten pretty far down the road here. So at this point, where we're at is we've got the core parts of the CMS wired up. So remember, we use a custom CMS at CheatCode. So we've got the custom CMS updated so that we can manage our documentation. And the thing that we finished the last time we met, so not last week, but the week before, I took off last week to write tutorials. 2 weeks ago, the thing that we finished up was getting the contents of the CMS, specifically the navigation, rendered in the browser. So let me jump over to the code real quick. And let's see here. So I want to show you this. So this is what we worked out last time. So remember that we built the foundations of our dynamic navigation. Now, clearly we don't have any active states or anything like that. So I want to work on that tonight. But we're starting to see like an actual interface come together. So before all this was static, it was just plain HTML and CSS that we wrote way back at the beginning of this. But now we're getting to the point where we've got dynamic data. So for example, if I jump back over to the CMS, and we got to work out some routing at the CMS level. But like I say, we've got the foundational aspects of this. So I'm going to, let's move Kanye West out here. So remember, we've got this concept of standalone pages and then pages that belong to a section. So now if I come back over here and refresh, notice we get Kanye West in the correct order. And if I move that to the top, refresh again, now our navigation is staying in sync with the backend, which is great. So what I want to focus on tonight is starting to handle the middle of the page or the main content of the page. So right now, we still don't really have a way to render the actual content of our documentation. So the thing that people are going to be reading. And we also don't have this side navigation wired up. Now, we are going to cheat a little bit. So I do have some code already written. I think I hinted at this the last time we did this. I do have a little bit of existing code from the main CheatCode site. So if you go over to cheatcode.co, and make sure you check out the site because I've been posting stuff every week if you haven't been keeping up. So if I go into a tutorial, I have this table of contents. And even though it appears really quickly, that's technically generated on the fly. Well, hey, the reason it generates quickly, I'm remembering how this works. The reason it generates quickly is because I server-side render it. So I render it both on the server and the client. That's why I got confused. So this navigation right here, this table of contents, is dynamically generated. We're going to use the exact same pattern in code, and I'll walk you through how I built it to do the sidebar navigation over here in the documentation. So we're going to wire this up. And the way that it works at a high level is we're going to scan the content that we're rendering. So the main body content for the documentation, we'll scan that for all of the H1 through H6 tags. Or I think I'm supporting H1 to H3 tags, but all the header tags. And what we're going to do is we're going to map over those header tags, and then we'll generate this table of contents essentially over on the side and get that working. So those are the core elements, and I also want to get the active state on the navigation. So those are the big three for tonight. Because a lot of the code is already written or already exists, I don't think it's going to take us too long. So if we get through all that at a decent pace, the next thing I want to focus on is this search box up here. So we were talking about doing something that looks like the Stripe docs. So up here, they've got their search box, and then they have this nice pop-up, and then as you do it, or as you search for something. So if I say like charges, so notice you get this nice responsive search that kind of says like, what do you call that? Search suggest, auto suggest. There's another name for it. I'm forgetting. Autofill, not autofill. I don't remember. But the point being, this is roughly the UI that we want to go for. Of course, we'll style it to match our documentation, but I at least want to get the rough mechanics of getting a modal to pop up when we focus the input, and then get some rough styles on that. So that's the extra credit, so to speak, tonight, is if we can get to that. But I want to focus on kind of this bottom half here. So getting the navigation styled up, making sure that it sets the correct current navigation item, get the content rendering, and get that styled a little bit. And again, we'll use something from the existing site to just give us a jump forward on that. And then get this sidebar navigation. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. If you're watching this live, go ahead and leave a comment. I've got my eye on it. And also, if you're watching this after the fact, make sure to leave any comments or questions down below. And give this thing a thumbs up, because that lets me know that you guys are still enjoying this. And remember, if you weren't watching before, or you didn't hear me say it, we got to pick out a new project. So after we finish this up, probably in the next 2 streams or so, we'll at least get it to the point where I'm like, oh, okay, this is good. What I want to do is start development on another app, but this one isn't going to be a cheat code thing. So this has been a warm-up for me more than anything. I know that this may not be the most interesting project, but I do want to work on something a little bit bigger that's more interesting for the audience. So if you have any ideas for different types of apps that you'd like to build or see built, go ahead and leave a comment down below. That's going to help me out to start to decide what to do. I've got some of my own ideas, but I'm curious what you folks are interested in that are watching these. So that's that. So let's get to work. So the first thing, some low-hanging fruit, is this navigation. And I don't remember, but we're going to jump into the inspector here in the browser and see if we're adding an active class and we just forgot to style it, or we still need to add the active class. What page are we on? ConUS, yeah, we're not. So what I would expect is down here in the markup to have an active class either in the LI or the A tag, but we don't have that. And if memory serves, when you're talking, it's the CMS. We're going to go back to the docs. And how did we do this? Again, like I say every time, usually takes me a few minutes when I haven't touched a project for a few weeks to get up to speed. And I always kind of account for that time in my own work as just like kind of poking around, being like, what were you doing here? What is this about? Why are you doing that? Have you lost your mind? And the answer is yes. There it is. Okay, so this is what I was looking for, is the navigation rendering. So I don't remember in Next.js if they give you, I don't think they do. You know what? I think I've got something. So just to, so it's clear. So we've got our docs project, CMS project, API project, and then this is the cheat code site. So this is what you folks see over here at cheatcode.co. And I think, what am I looking for? I forgot just that quick. Navigation link. I'm almost certain I wrote some component or something. Yeah, I did. And there's a trick to this. Ah, okay. Yeah. So the thing that we have to do is get access to the current router path name, and then that's how we set. So you can see here in the site code, I set the class name on the LI tag in the navigation if the router's path name matches the current URL that we're at. And then other than that, we just render the exact same thing that we're rendering now. So if I jump back to, I'm gonna actually close some stuff out here so I don't get confused. So I don't get confused. So yeah, so right here, we're just rendering a normal link tag with a dynamic URL based on which item in the menu that we're clicking on. But we need to get this. So how is this component built? Can we do a use router? Do we have to do... Yeah, you know what? I'm going to close the CMS because we're pretty much set with that unless we have a bug. So yeah, we're just going to keep site, docs, and API open for now. So what was my question? What type of component am I in? Nice. Okay. And we already have routers. So instead of copying all this and creating separate components, I'm just going to steal... What? Maybe we should make it a component. So the thing I just saw is like, what is where's href coming from? So that's a prop passed in, which is nice because technically speaking, we're dynamically, well, no, because we're in a function body. So let's just do this. So we can just say const, I'll just call it, you know what? I'm going to steal that name. I'm going to call it the href. Okay, so we got our href. So now this, we're just going to pass back in the same spot, but the reason I did that is because now we can compare it against the path name. And we're just going to steal this entire line. And we'll I've had all these little spiders in my office. I left my window open, and now I've got like all these little like miniature spiders hopping around. So every few seconds, I'm like, something's on me. Yeah, let's do the li, because if memory serves, this link component from Next.js doesn't play friendly with class name or an active class name. Okay, so yeah, that makes sense. So we've got our href up here now. Again, this is just what we were passing directly to the link tag right here. I've just put it in a variable so that we can do this evaluation right here. So let's save that. Can't read. Oh, duh. I'm not even paying attention. So we've got pages, sections. Oh, right, duh. Because we've got standalone pages and we've got pages that belong to sections. So we essentially, yeah, we should. So this is one of those situations where, generally speaking, I would spin this off to a component, but for now, we can get away with just doing this. I'm telling you, there's something crawling on my elbow. I'm just itching. Okay, so same exact idea. I'll just call this href. Set that. This is going to go there. And then we're just going to steal this exact same line. Okay, now are you happy? Good, okay. So, yeah, I don't think we have... I could swear we did the... Oh, it's still not doing it. Should work. No, they have class attributes. Did I call it class name? And I thought I had a router instance. I do. Okay, so my next question would be, what is href? What is path name? So we might be getting undefineds on some stuff temporarily. Href path name. It might just be getting trapped in the scope of the function on render. Just want to close that. Oh. No, that's not wrong. It's just the way that our path names exist. Okay. We can work around that, but let me... So I'm going to look on the window location object. Yeah, we can just use that. We don't have to use the router path name. Because basically, and it makes sense why this is happening. So Next.js is automatically using the pattern for the page that we're on, but it's not actually replacing out the value. Actually, you know what? I'm curious, just for the sake of verifying this. So I'm going to clear that, and we'll jump to should work. Okay, so now we've got access to the full router object. So here... Okay, it looks like in this case, as path is going to be better. So here, this is the router object. Where'd it go? This is the router object that we get back from Next.js from the use router hook. So what I'm looking at in the browser is what's contained in this variable right here. So it looks like as path is the safe one. Yeah, path name just gets the replacements in it. Okay, I guess I'm fine with that. There's probably a reason they do that. I don't know what that is though. So we'll just say as path, get rid of all this jazz, because that means this should start working. Okay, so save that. Yeah, there we go. I love that about Next.js, how it just does the auto re-render. Okay, well, that was easy. Cheap win. So now you can see, hopefully you can see. Can you see? Yeah, you can see it. So over on the far left, kind of tucked in the corner here, we get this yellow bar, and then the text darkens a little bit. Do I still like that? I think I do. Yeah, because you get the feedback of this changes. It matches the name over here. This, oh, I forgot about this. Breadcrumbs. Huh. Well, I guess we kind of know, huh? So I'm eyeballing this breadcrumb navigation and thinking like, well, is that the best thing to do, or do we want to move on to what we talked about? I want to pull the rug on you folks. Nah, we should get that done, because then we're moving towards this actually being finished, which would be good, because I think this is the 8th video, so we're 8 videos deep at this point. It's a lot of tutorials. Yeah, okay. So let's take a look, and you'll get to see me make this up on the go. I guess technically I've made all this up on the go, but you know, the actual solution, because most of the stuff I've already done before. And I've done this before, but I gotta think, because we've got a weird URL. It's like, so you have, yeah, because these are easy to build because I'm just mapping over data. But in terms of, yeah, do we have like a variable that tells us what we're looking at? No. Well, let's you know what, let me do this again. So instead of logging navigation, I'm gonna log router again. Because technically speaking, we can just do some light pattern matching on, what is it? Path name. Yeah. So we can just see, does it include path name? Yeah, because like, what's the question? How does it know? Oh, but wait a minute. This is wrapping this. And this is independent, meaning this documentation content. So to make sure that's clear, so here we've got title and content in this other component documentation path. That's what's rendering all this stuff. What we're concerned about, though, is in the main documentation part up here. But the problem is that the child component down here, so documentation path is being rendered, technically speaking, as a child of this documentation component. So here we've got the children prop, which is automatically assigned by React whenever we pass something in the body of a component. So instead of rendering a component like that, but instead we wrap it around something, whatever is between those two tags, so all of this stuff, let me jump that down real quick so you can see it all at once. So whatever that code is, that becomes children, or the children prop. So here we're in a bit of a pickle because we don't know what we're looking at until this code runs, meaning the GraphQL queries and everything. And we got to get it back up. I'm an idiot. Some of you're yelling at the screen like, you just passed props to documentation. Yeah, okay. Duh. And since we've got a pretty fixed pattern for how this is organized, we know what the, what did we call this? Documentation. Where is the friggin'? Oh, right. Okay, it all comes back as one query. Okay, so let's do this. Crisis averted. So I want to see her. What? So I'm at should work. So, okay, so we can get that. Now I've got documentation page, so what if I go like here? So I still don't know that I'm on a section. That's problematic. Yeah, that is problematic. So the thing is that our query switches, which is fine for rendering the page, but it's not good for being able to identify up here in the breadcrumbs. Because if you notice, documentation page changes what it returns based on what page we're on, but it doesn't tell us if we're in a section and what that section would be. And that's important because up here, topic is the section name. So something like Beastie Boys is the section name. So I would want to be able to get access to that section name regardless of whether I was looking at a standalone page or that. Okay. And that would likely make more sense if we go and look at the API. So what are we doing? This is what we're running, documentation page. Yes. Okay. So documentation page, get the documentation. So we say if there's a slug, oh, I literally just returned the, okay. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna say page. Now this is gonna require us to mess with our GraphQL types a little bit, but it's gonna make this whole thing way less stressful to deal with. So section, you're in scope. Yes, you are. So what I would anticipate, so if we look back here up on line 12, so we only try and retrieve a documentation section if we pass that documentation section slug. So what I would anticipate by doing this return value from the query is that, well, if there's a section, it'll be defined, and if there's not, it'll just be null, and we can use that information back in the UI to say, do we need to render this little chevron character along with section name, section title, and page title, or can we just render the individual page title? And we can do it all based on whether or not that exists, which is awesome. So we need to change, or actually before we change that, meaning the types, we need to look in the schema. What are we returning? Documentation page. So it's gonna make me cranky, isn't it? Because it's not a documentation page. Well, let's go look at the type before I get all fussy. So documentation page, yeah, okay, that's what I thought. So it's got the page content fields, but I don't necessarily, so what we would have to do as of right now is something like this. And I don't believe that types can recursively reference themselves. So I can't say like documentation page contains itself. Might be able to. Actually, I'm kind of curious. And I don't want this to be the solution, but where's the server? There it is. Let's see if it freaks out. Fingers crossed. I don't think it's going to freak out. Cool. No. This. Oh, that's from the... Yeah, that's from the MongoDB package. So if you're using the, I should say this, the Node.js server boilerplate, which is what the API is built on here, if you see this warning, that's a part of the native MongoDB Node.js driver. So I found a thread, I think it was on their support forum, saying like, oh yeah, that's something that's going to get fixed in a future version. So that's not you doing anything. That's just a fluke of the package right now. So that's the MongoDB package and the package JSON of that boilerplate. So it looks like that's okay. So let's do it kind of tentatively here. Oh, that just feels dirty. So what? So we've already got a documentation type which references the whole documentation. We've got. I know what we can do. So instead of doing all this, because we don't technically need access to everything, so let's just build out our breadcrumbs and be done with it. Wow, this is old school. We're gonna have hard code stuff. I don't know if that's really old school, but yeah. Once you've been doing this for a few years, you start to get confused. Things start to blend together. Blues start looking like greens. That's not nice. I shouldn't make fun of old people. All right, so we've got our page and we got our section. So we're gonna leave the page alone. So we're just gonna do a spread operator and say unpack the contents of that page object that you get back from Mongo here. And that needs an await on it now. And the reason why is that the MongoDB constructor and node is gonna return a promise. And it's gonna run the query asynchronously. So we have to do the await to make sure we've got the page in return. And we've already got the async keyword up here, so that's fine. So we're spreading the contents of the page. Now my idea, I don't know if this is going to work, but this is my idea, is we're going to say, all right, well, let's build the breadcrumbs out manually. Yeah, which I guess you can get away with. I don't know why I'm skeptical, but okay, before I do that, let me comment this, and then I want to log out the data we're getting. So we've got documentation, section, and a page. So what I want to see is what is the structure and what exactly do I want to pluck off for these breadcrumbs? Because ideally we get what we need to render in the UI without having to do any extra work on the client. So run this. We won't see anything here different. There we go. So we've got, I think you folks can see this. So in this case, I am looking at a standalone page. I am. So let's drill down to a section. There we go. So we get a section and we get a page. So really what we care about here are the slugs. Yeah. Just to see, folks. No, not that. Give me the corner. You see that? Thank you. Okay, so what I want to do, what we care about, I should say, is, well, what is the, yeah, actually, slugs, so we can just pull these directly. So we'll say documentation section. We're going to use this little question mark syntax as shorthand to give us access to that, and then we care about the title. Oh, and we care about the same data for the page itself, so we can just add a generic type for a breadcrumb item and be done with it. So we say title is documentation section.title. So copy this, paste that, and now this just becomes page. Okay, so the advantage being, if we do have a documentation section, it's kind of messy. Could do a reduce or something like that, but that's... I don't know why this is bugging the hell out of me, but... So we're going to say args documentation section ID. Oh, God, that's ugly. Oh, I see how to do it. Yeah. So you've always got at least a page. All right, so we can initialize our breadcrumbs array here, and then we can do this. So we can say, okay, if we do have a documentation section ID, we're going to add it and do that. Otherwise, we're just going to pet. There we go. Okay. Whew. So we're going to say args documentation section ID. If that's defined, we want to add, and this is going to likely be confusing right now. So this is what we're trying to get to. So we're going to say, okay, if there's a section ID, we'll just kind of assume that there should be a section that matches. So if there is, we know that our array needs to have the section as the first item, and then whatever the rest of our breadcrumbs are. So in this case, just one extra breadcrumb. But what we can do is say, okay, concatenate together that one section part and then spread out the contents or unpack the contents of this existing breadcrumbs array. All right, so that's part one, assuming that we do have a section. And if we don't, we can just return breadcrumbs as is right here, and we get our single standalone page. So that should do it. But now we have to add another type to here. So instead of doing all this malarkey, which don't need to be doing that, and I'm just going to call this not a breadcrumb, I'm going to call it a breadcrumb. And I'm going to say type breadcrumb. What did I put on there? Slug and title. And technically, yes, I could reference document. You know what? I am going to do that just so we're not being wasteful. And we already found out that it looks like we can compose a type back into itself, which is kind of surprising, but we will take it. Actually, it's not. Because based on the way this would evaluate, it's just going to say, oh, well, documentation page is defined in memory. We reference it here, and it'll just say, okay, that's the shape of the data. So that does make sense. All right, so back over here, I think we can get rid of that. Now we're going to jump back to our docs app, and we're going to go over to, so from the root of the project. So again, this is identical or roughly identical to the Next.js boilerplate that we offer at CheatCode. So the structure here, if you're building your own application, is going to look identical to this. So what I'm going to do is modify the query that we run, meaning the actual documentation query. So we've got documentation, where is it? Here. Oh, right. Well, that was kind of intentional. So remember, we went through that whole to-do where we had a documentation pages collection in MongoDB, but then I changed my mind when I realized that we could just piggyback on the post collection instead. So I was just looking at the name of this file, like documentation page. I thought we got rid of that. We kept it on the client for the sake of context in terms of what we're trying to render. Because if I put post.gql there, I know damn well I would come back to this later and be like, what are you talking about? So that's why this is here. That's sloppy. You can slap me on the wrist for that, but I guess I can see why that was the decision that was made. But nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. All right. So now, hopefully this isn't exploding, though it doesn't look terribly happy. Oh, there it goes. Okay, cool. So where are we at? Documentation path. I said her data. But now we should have breadcrumbs. We do. Ah, but we're missing our section. But at least we got something, so that's good. So now the question is, what did I mess up on the API? Did I spell something wrong? No, it's not an ID, it's a slug. So we just want to swap that. And how are we looking? Come on. There we go. Perfect. Okay, now we can render this out comfortably without having any problems. So, like I was hinting at, before we went up to the server, and somebody was likely yelling at the screen, now we could just pass the breadcrumbs directly to this, and we can call it breadcrumbs, and the world keeps spinning. So we're just gonna steal, I'm gonna make it a variable, just cause. Breadcrumbs, and I'm gonna move this up because technically, so a way that I tend to organize my variables, I don't always do this, but I try to keep them so their instantiation or their definition in order of how they're actually gonna be used in the page. because it makes it a little faster for your brain to actually pick up. So breadcrumbs are technically going to be the first thing that gets rendered or utilized, and then title, and then content. So little tricks like that, little cognitive tricks are helpful when you're building stuff, just to make it faster to comprehend your code. So back in documentation now, we should have on props breadcrumbs, and it's an array, which means we can map over it. So where are those turkeys? Right there. And we're going to have to do... Oh, did we do that in CSS? No. That would be awesome. So I'm worried about that little icon. Ha! Look at that. We did do it in CSS. Well, that just made this way easier. Because I was going to say we have to write some conditional logic to get this to spit out the... let me show you. This little character in the middle, the little arrow. But we don't because it's CSS, so we already did the work. Which means when we render this, it should just do it. Now there's a gotcha. So the gotcha, let me just show you. So this will technically render, should render. But we're going to have a problem with the URL. And I bet you can guess what it's going to be. So this, the problem is going to be, oh no, it might not be an issue. Might not be an issue. Hold that thought. No, it'll be an issue. I was thinking one step ahead. So I'm going to put that there. Oh, this is also unnecessary. Yeah, this is going to be a problem because if we're on a... You know, I can work around that. So if we're on a section page, the page is only going to have its slug, meaning, so if we look at our code up here on the server, so I'm only going to have one slug at a time. I'm not going to have the combined slugs. So kind of burns us, but it's not too bad because I can just do this. I can say is section page. And the only reason I can really get away with this is because our nesting is limited to 2 levels. So it's either 1 level or 2 levels. So we can get away with that. If you're doing a more dynamic navigation where you could have infinite levels, you'd have to do some mapping code here. But this I think we can get away with. So I can basically say, if it is a section page, and you know what, just so that code isn't just sitting up there. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to say, is section page if, and I'll do it like that just to make sure it is greater than 1. Or you know what, I'll just hard code it to 2 for now. So we know it's a section page if that's the case. And then we're going to say section. I really don't like stuff like this, but because this is not terribly dynamic, we can get away with it. So I'm going to do it like this because you can't use that question mark syntax. 0, and I'll explain what I mean in a sec here, but what am I looking for? I'm going to call this section slug. So let me show you what I'm getting at. So is section page. We're going to do this. We're going to say slash section slug slash slug. So what that's going to get us is that concatenated section slug up top and then the current page that we're looping over. We're going to know that, oh, okay, this is the page underneath that section. Otherwise, we can just fall back to the individual slug because it's a standalone or top level page. So that should work. So the thing I made a point about is that the question mark syntax is a little fishy when you're working with bracket notation. At least I think it is. Maybe I'm making stuff up. I think, am I? I could swear I ran into a syntax error the other day trying to do that. So breadcrumbs exists, or maybe it's like right there. So it lets me check for breadcrumbs existence, but not the, oh no, it's yapping. Yeah, it thinks it's a ternary operator. Yeah, so when you're dealing with bracket notation, unfortunately you got to do the extended and symbol chain. But that should get us right where we want to go. So if I jump back up here, we get should work. Jump down here, we get that. That's a standalone. So there we go. So now, technically speaking, we gotta be careful. Wait, what? Project slug. Why did that happen? So that renders fine, but when I clicked on the link, what did I do? I broke it. Cannot read property map of breadcrumbs. Oh, probably because it doesn't have a default prop and it's not loading the query yet. Well, that's not right. That's the prop type, so we're going to say prop types dot array, and then we're going to set default props. I don't know if we've ever done this in here before. Might have. So what this does is it ensures when this initially renders that React has all the dependencies it needs in terms of the props and state. Maybe it was just a fluke of that misrender. So, and we're going to have to do some special routing. We don't have to do it right now. Weird. So it has a default prop, but it's still yapping. Documentation index. So yeah, what we were just working on. So I mean, we can do this. It's a little goofy, but I can live with that. Now the whole, oh, weird. There you go. Okay. Oh, duh. Because you're in a map. So section page is technically always true, but we don't, that's why it was breaking. We don't want to put the section slug with itself. So, man, I don't really like this, but. I just want to verify the problem and then we'll. Oh, we're missing, oh wow. We're missing the project slug as well. So like that one is fine. Or it was. That's weird. So our query dies. Does that page actually belong to that? Yeah, it does. Oh, duh. Okay, so we're missing the that makes sense now. Okay, I see the screw up. So this is going to need to be that, but we're going to have to do, it should be in scope, I think. Yeah, documentation slug. Oh boy, we have a name collision. So I'm going to say documentation slug. Where was that in use before? In the navigation, aha. Yeah, actually I prefer that we rename that because that was kind of confusing just having slug in there. Documentation slug, documentation slug. So yeah, here we're gonna do that. And then we're also gonna add it there, like that. Now I should be back to sanity. So let me hard refresh. If I click on this, it shouldn't go anywhere. Click on that. So I was talking a few seconds ago, I was like, we got to handle this. So notice when we're at the root of a section, we don't have a page technically. So what I want to do is detect that and then make sure that we just redirect to the first page in order on that section. We'll worry about that later, just so we can keep cruising. Yeah, and so now when I click on that, it stays where it's going. That's kind of an interesting problem. Oh, and it's weird, right? Okay, it makes sense. I'm sitting here like, why does that feel so weird? It's because we only have one item under the section. So if I did something like that and then we refresh, now it won't feel as weird. So like if I'm on should work under Beastie Boys now, and I click on Beastie Boys up here, I would expect it to flip it back to Flaming Lips. So it would basically just kick back to whatever the top of that section is. And then this just behaves like normal. It's just a standalone. Okay, well I'm happy with that, just so we can keep cruising. I know some of these we've spun our tires for an extended amount of time. So I'm going to say let's move on to content. And like I was hinting at, I've already got I think I opened it before we started. Yeah, I did. So I have a component inside of the CheatCode site that styles the content for the post. So if you're on the site, all of this styling, so the headers, the pre-tags, the paragraphs, there's like the code formatting, all that stuff. That's all handled inside of this content component. So I just have a styled component called styled content, and then I dangerously set inner HTML on that. So that just injects some HTML into the page. And so I take the parsed Markdown. So I write posts in Markdown on the site, which is what we're doing here. Again, we're using the same exact editor. So I write the posts in Markdown, convert it from Markdown to HTML. Here, this get HTML, which we're going to look at, is where I do what I talked about, the select tags, and I also do some other decorating. So I make sure that videos are responsive in the page, and I also add anchor links to all the tiles. So we're actually going to use quite a bit of this, and there's two parts to this. So you'll notice I've got an is client check here, and then down here I use something called Cheerio, which is like a lightweight server-side friendly or Node.js friendly DOM selection library. So basically it allows us to build a DOM in memory, kind of a virtual DOM in memory, and then modify that virtual DOM. And so the point of that is we need to do things slightly differently in Next.js's server-side render context, because you're not going to have things like we have up here. So I'm talking about document.createElement. Document doesn't exist when it's server-side rendering, so the code freaks out. So we need to handle both sides of it. We need to handle the server-side render part, and we need to handle the client-side render. But we're going to come back to this, but just to make the point about what this is doing. So this takes in the raw content string and then parses it. And I think I might have changed it recently because I had a bug. Yeah, it looks like I did. So what I'm looking for is the part. Yeah, okay. I just forgot to get rid of the import. So I've got Parse Markdown, which is the function that converts the Markdown text into HTML. I used to run that in here, but I think I extracted it up to the individual pages because I was having a problem with the table of contents. But we'll ignore that. Point being, the important part is to notice that, okay, we've got this component, style component, and then all of the styles for the content, like I just showed you back on the site, are defined in here. So what we're going to do now is basically hijack this and try and get it over to the docs site. Because again, we want to, just for the sake of consistency on the branding side of things, I want to make sure that these look identical. So when you move from the site over to the docs, you know that you're still looking at CheatCode. And yeah, technically speaking, we've got the logo up here, but still I want it to feel like same style of content, same thing, so it's really nice and smooth to move between. That's a detail. You gotta be detailed. A lot of people are lazy. Don't be lazy. Please don't be lazy. Don't be lazy. Oh, I feel like sitting on the couch. See what I did there? See, that's that highbrow comedy that you're not gonna find very much on YouTube. Well, you probably will these days on YouTube. I'm just this quiet, lonely little corner of the internet. Just a nerd playing with his computer and picking his nose. Gross. Gross. Grow up. I love it when people say that to you unironically. You need to grow up. You need to pull yourself together. I'm not a child. I'm responsible. I'm a grown man. Okay, enough meandering. So, content. Sometimes that happens. I just go off on these little trails and 30 seconds later I come back. Promise I'm okay. What was I? Components. That's why I'm getting confused. I'm looking in the wrong damn place. So we're going to add content as a component. And then we're going to say index.js. Going to go. And all of our styles in here. But we're missing some dependencies. So which one of you? This is like roulette. That's the CMS. Turn that back on. That's the docs. Okay, so we gotta say npm. I don't think I have these. So we'll jump ahead a little bit. I'm gonna install Prism Js, which is the syntax highlighter for the code blocks. And I'm gonna install Cheerio. Yeah, Cheerio. Which is gonna get us what we need. And then because we're using the boilerplate for this, we should have Parse Markdown in here. No, we don't? That's actually surprising. No, okay. So we're gonna need common mark, which is the Markdown Parser that I use. So Parse Markdown is a wrapper function, calls to common mark and parses the stuff. At least I think that's what I do. Let's check. So this, I'm back on the main site. Oh. Yeah, okay. So let's just copy this over. So content, I guess we could save that. Prism Js, Cheerio, common mark. That should tick the big stuff. And then we need Prism Theme. So Prism Theme, it sounds like prison theme, is this like, I don't know what you call that style. I got it from an old school website called Railscast, which is like one of the first big Ruby on Rails tutorial sites back in the day, and I've loved how it matches the CheatCode branding. So that's where that style came from. It's actually blast from the past time. So I don't know if anybody watching knows that I used to run this, but technically it's still up. So the Meteor Chef is where I took these styles from. So originally I adapted them. So you'll notice the same colors and all that stuff. So I did that. This is the last time that I did this, and it's the only time that I've done it. Is I went by hand and picked the colors out because the theme wasn't made yet for Prism JS. It was just in the guy's video, so I sat, I think it was like Photoshop or something at the time, and like picked the colors. That was obsessive. But little history around where that color scheme came from. That's how it came into be. So we got Prism Theme here, but we need it. So even though it's in a JS file, it's just a string of CSS. I just did that so it was easy to import and concatenate together with my style components like that. Lib, yeah, lib. Let's say Prism Theme. And if you're the type of person who does stuff like Lerna or packages or something, it's like, yeah, technically I could do this stuff as packages, and maybe one day I'll do that, but I try and avoid that stuff unless it's going to have a serious impact on what I'm doing, and so far so good. I'm not too dissatisfied with this flow. What am I getting stuck on? So I need to go back to content, and you know what, let's just copy over this getHTML function to lib. Yeah, and then we'll worry about the implementation in a little bit here. Yeah, because we're going to need it anyways to get this to work, so makes sense. This, yeah, you should have get slug. No, you don't. Okay. Okay. I take it back. So, and we got to install another library. I used to do this. Technically, we don't need to do this. I could do it by hand. I haven't actually thought about that. Oh, no, but it does escape URL parts, so that's fine. So technically, we could just do replace on this string, strip out the spaces, replace them with dashes, lowercase the whole thing, and you've got a slug. Yeah, I'm not even worried about it. So the top secret thing, there's a lot of stuff literally just around the corner. So I'm gonna say this, and I think I'm at the 99% mark. So Tuesday, I finished all of the content for the first cheat code course. So it's written and video. So you get both if you pay for the pro version of the course. I think I'm gonna have it all ready and packaged and everything by Tuesday, this coming week. So what is that? That's Tuesday the 13th. So watch out on the site, cheatcode.co for that. And you'll see a little courses link navigation item pop up if I finish tomorrow, because I got to do some editing and copywriting and all that stuff, which is going to take some time. But that's coming right around the corner. And then I've also got a site redesign in the works. So if you were wondering, because a little bit ago I was like, I want the styles to match. You're probably like, they don't. It's like, well, the reason why is this is where things are going. So this is more in the theme of where things are at. The content here is going to basically stay the same. So we can pull that part out, move it over to the docs, because I'm going to reuse it on the new site design. But that's kind of why I'm dancing around this in the way that I am, because I'm trying to think in the back of my head like, oh, okay, what am I going to want in the new design versus the old design? So that's what's up. So lots of stuff coming. If you're not subscribed to the newsletter yet, and you've just been watching on YouTube, or just you came from Google watching the tutorials, make sure to go to cheatcode.co/newsletter. Pop in your email, because I'll be announcing the new course to the list, as well as the redesign and all this other stuff. And there's other stuff too coming later this year. More courses, top secret projects that nobody knows about. If I can figure them out, which I think I can. And then, yeah, more goodness, all more goodness. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. So, train of thought, where were we here? So, yeah, we're in docs. So we're adding this get HTML function. That we're going to rip out, at least temporarily. And we'll walk through how this is actually working, because there's quite a bit of detail to it. And actually, I guess the whole thing, I was thinking about getting rid of this, but we might have videos in the docs, so that works. Okay, so the whole point of that charade was we're trying to get the dependencies, and I don't think I call it delay in here. Do I call it throttle? Throttle, yeah. So this, and what this is doing. So actually, yeah, let's talk through this. So again, these are all the CSS styles that are being applied to the page content. And then down here is where all of this actually gets rendered. Now, the throttle thing that I just had, throttle is a function. I forget where I picked this up. I feel like it was in somebody's documentation or something years ago. But basically, it's a nice way to, I think there's another name for it, a debounce. So basically a way to wait to call a set timeout until the outer function or the parent function has stopped being called. So literally throttle calling it. So what I'm using that for is a little trick here in this React use effect. I'm saying don't try and highlight the code blocks using Prism. So Prism is a JavaScript library for doing syntax highlighting. I'm saying wait half a second, so 500 milliseconds after you've stopped having this use effect getting triggered. So that way you don't get a bunch of re-rendered chaos. It just makes sure that it's like, okay, wait until it stops calling the throttle function to call this function. So stops for half a second. And that's what throttle helps you to do. So that's included in the Next.js boilerplate. And the change I just made, I used to call it the delay function, but changed my mind. when I started building this Next.js boilerplate, so that's why it's called throttle. Sometimes you get bored, sometimes change names, just cause. Okay, so we're gonna use this getHTML function down here. And then we've got our style. So what I wanna do, what did I forget to? I forgot to install something. Speaking URL. So the thing that helps us generate our slugs for the table of contents, or in this case, it's gonna be that sidebar navigation. Go away. Okay. Good. So now I'm a little skeptical. Which page has content? This one. Warming up the buggy. All right, so where are we here? We're looking for, we just opened a bunch of stuff. So I'm gonna leave content and get HTML open. The other stuff we can basically ditch for now. And then what I might do is go to the actual CheatCode CMS and steal the content for a post so we have some test data. Actually, that's not a bad idea. So we need that. Don't need that, don't need that, don't need that. Move this down. We shouldn't need documentation anymore because we took care of the breadcrumbs and the nav. Okay. So, content. Content, there it is. Looking right at it. Okay, so we're gonna pull in that content component that we just copied over from the site. Nope, there's a content. Is that right? Yeah. Content prop, that gets passed to get HTML. So I expect this to still look a little broken right now. Oh, it's not an import. Come on, VS Code. I was hoping you would get that. Okay. Is client is not a function. That's not surprising. But that should be defined. Oh yeah. So what I have in getHTML from the site is the prototype version for this. I just made it a self-calling function when I put it in the boilerplate. So back over here, I just have, what is that? An iffy. Immediately invoked function expression. A function that calls itself. Took me the longest time when I first learned that to remember and like, what in the hell is an iffy? It's also got all these negative connotations like, oh, this is iffy. I don't want to write iffy code. Okay, so I was just hinting like, okay, I don't think this is going to work just yet. And the reason why is we got to parse the markdown into HTML. Which means we need to go back to this page. And we're going to import Parse Markdown. And did I actually I know I copied the code. Yes. Yes, I did. Where am I? Lib Parse Markdown. There we go. And the reason there's a gap there, well, you can actually say, so that did work. Okay, so that is off screen. Let me tug this up. Okay, so bottom left corner of the browser. So if I hover in the right spot, so what it's spitting out if you can't read it, that's the, so you'll notice it jumped up here in the URL. That's the, what do you call those? Anchor link. So remember back here, I teased this a second ago, in getHTML, that's one of the things that it's doing, is it's generating your anchor links. So before we dig into that code, I want to look at, it looks like there's an icon missing, because it's, the link is there, but the actual icon, FAR, oh, okay. Let's see if we can get away with this. So I've got a pro version of the Font Awesome library that I include in the Next.js boilerplate. The boilerplate has the free, boilerplate has the free copy. I've got the pro copy in the site. And that is in either app or document. I think document. Oop. Where are you? Yep. All right. So back over here. Should be in document as well. Yep. Yeah. So they just use different codes for the kits. But now the question is, oh no, I don't think it auto reloads on that. Come on. There we go. Doesn't look that great in context here, but we'll work through that later. My concern right now was just getting something to work, just to verify that we had it, and then we'll worry about the prettification of everything later. And it looks like our other icon broke, which is strange. So we got a search icon, but the chevron took a hike. I mean, it's not that big of a deal right now, but mildly infuriating. I don't like it when things break randomly. Who does? There's got to be somebody out there. There's some guy who just gets all excited. It's like, ha! Something broke! I have to fix it. It's like, not this guy. Not this guy. What did you do? Oh, I know why. Yeah. Okay, so our CSS trick from earlier burned us. So the problem is in here in the styles. So notice, remember I was just saying a few minutes ago that I used the pro version. So they changed the name of the font face. There it is. So it came back. They changed the name of the font face when you load it. So that's why that broke. And in case you don't remember, so the way that I did that, instead of actually rendering the icon, either as a React component or as a, usually I'll do it on like an I tag like this. I'll say like I class name equals FAS, what is that, a chevron, right? So instead of doing that or using a React component to render the icon, what I did, because I didn't know how many items I was going to have in the breadcrumbs, I just rendered it as a pseudo element using this after tag. And so here, this is the Ascii code. So you may have heard that term before. So don't ask me what that stands for. It does have a definition. But the Ascii format, that code maps back to an icon in this typeface. So when you set the content of the pseudo element to that code, and you set the font family on that pseudo element to Font Awesome, it syncs up, and then you get an icon. Which, that still blows my mind, honestly. I don't remember the first time I saw that. It's been years ago now, but the first time I saw it, I was like, there's no way that worked, and it works. It's pretty cool. Okay, so what were we just doing? So we had that. Oh, that's what we were doing. We were fixing the icons. Okay, so like I just said, I think we're going to skip most of this, but let's go over to, I'm going to do this on my other screen just in case I have to type a password or something. No, okay, so behind the scenes. So this is how I do all my tutorial stuff. So we're just going to steal this content. Then we're going to jump back over here, and who's going to be the lucky beagle? Should work. Hopefully this is still rendering. Looks like Next.js is trying to do something. There we go. All right, so the other nice thing about this is that I've got some preview styles that are roughly similar to what I've got in the actual site in my editor. So when I'm writing stuff, I can get a guesstimate of what it's going to look like for you folks when you visit the site without having to go back and forth to the site every time, which will drive you nuts. Okay, all right. That's actually not bad. it passes Go. It's not up to Ryan Glover standards, okay? I don't want you to be like, whoa, no. This needs some finesse, but for the time being, that at least ticks the box. Now, here's where I'm curious. Did our responsive video stuff kick in? It looks like it did. I don't know if you can see it, but it resizes. Awesome. So that's what I wanted. And that gets us somewhere as far as everything else goes. Now, again, I'll noodle with the styles, but documentation is somewhat working. So, next target is this turkey, the sidebar navigation. And like I said, we technically already have it. I don't remember how it works fully. I remember how the part I've been showing you works, but I don't remember how I get it into the page. There's a trick. At least I think there's a trick. Let's go back over to the site code, and we're going to look at the tutorials template, slug. Yeah, I just saw it. Yeah, so I have an array that I generate, but where do I generate the array? In the props. Oh, I have another function. Oh, right. Okay, this was, so I talked about this a little bit earlier. I was talking about moving stuff around on the site. I was having trouble getting the table of contents to build properly. So we're actually going to use two functions. Yeah, so this still uses Cheerio, so we'll walk through all that stuff. But it only uses Cheerio because this is only intended to run on the server side. You can see I've got not is client here. But we'll walk through both functions, but I do want to copy this over. Yeah. How did I see what I'm doing. I'm generating a slug. So let's copy this over to here. Never be ashamed. Didn't I just go on a rant? I was going to say never be ashamed of being lazy, and I just went on a rant about being lazy. Yeah. Sometimes it's okay to be lazy. All right, I'm just going to say it. Sometimes, under certain circumstances, it's okay to be lazy. But most of the time, it's not. So, don't make excuses, right? So if you have the opportunity to do it properly, do it properly. In this case, this is technically doing it properly because the code already works. I don't have to, there's no point in rewriting it from scratch. So that's my justification. That's my rationalization. Leave me alone. That's it. So build table of content. Did I put that in the right place? Yeah, okay. So build table of contents. We came to that conclusion because we were looking at the site and I was trying to figure out how the hell does this work. So that's what I do. Excuse me. So I build the table of contents off of the HTML parsed from the Markdown. Okay, got it. In case that doesn't make sense, don't worry. We will check it out in just a tick. But this has to run in the server, so we're going to do one of these doodles. I think I just use get server side props. Is a do. So if you've never seen this or we haven't talked about it, this is a Next.js convention for letting you pass server-side props or props down to the component from the server-side render event. So basically, even though we don't really see it, Next.js starts a HTTP server for us to handle those server-side renders, and this code runs or it gets executed in that context. So it allows us to do server-side work in a server context and then hand the result of that down to the component as props. So just like the name implies, get the server-side props. So for us, the prop that we're after is table of contents. Let's say const, and this is going to burn us, I just realized. Yeah, because I'm not fetching the content in the server. Though I guess we should. Oh, we might have a refactor on our hands here. So what I'm talking about, we're not fetching our data or querying for our GraphQL data until we're here. But because this is going to be a page that I want to get picked up by SEO, so search engines, it probably should run down here. So that way the content already exists on the server when it renders back. I didn't think about that. Well, this is a catch-22. Because one version of this is we just, which I mean, I guess I can rewrite this in client-side code. That might be best for tonight, and then we'll plan a refactor for later. Yeah, that'll be fun to watch. Let's refactor to the client, because I don't want to undo everything we've done just for the sake of doing this and then waste the rest of our time here tonight. So we're going to skip server-side get server-side props for now, and I'm going to try and generate the table of contents here on the client. But in order to do that, we got to refactor build table. Ha! Look how I spelled it. Build of table contents. Not quite slick. Not quite. Build table of contents. There we go. Okay, so we're going to refactor that function now. And yeah, maybe. Yes. So I'm going to take So I'm going to say content is HTML because we want to pass that. No. There you go. So we want to pass content as HTML, so meaning the parsed markdown, we get actual HTML tags back. That's going to help us to build the table of contents. Because what we do, once we jump in there, is we're basically saying go and find all of the H1 through H3 tags in the DOM, map over those, and then generate us an array of slugs and titles that are going to represent the table of contents. So we're actually going to need to do this now that I'm looking at it twice. So there is, well, no, I'm an idiot. Never mind. I was going to say we want to render table of contents here, but that's what this is all about. So don't. Just don't. Okay? I have a fragile ego. I can't even get it out. I know. Well, sometimes I have a fragile ego. Some people know how to turn my screws. But most of the time, no. I don't care. I quit. Have you taken a look at the world? Who cares? Who cares? No, if you're young, don't give up hope. Please, for the love of God, don't give up hope. Because otherwise we're screwed. Don't give up hope. I'm actually quite optimistic. Why would I be building a company if I wasn't optimistic, right? At least that's what I tell myself before I go to sleep. And then I still have nightmares. I'm kidding. I don't have nightmares. Well, when's the last time I had a nightmare? All right. See? This is what I was talking about earlier. I go off on these little tangents. And this is what I do during the day while I'm working by myself. I'll just start, like a bee chasing pollen. It's like, let's go on this tirade. Nutcase. Why did I do this? What was I getting at? Refactor. Okay, so we're going to say not this jQuery looking stuff. So let's just do it line by line. So what we're after is, I'm just going to call it div. So we're going to say document, create, element div. So that takes care of that line. And then we're going to do, someone's going to go line by line here. So we're going to set div inner HTML to HTML string. Get rid of that. Stop. Oh, this will be a good one. Because you have to deal with the goofy. So I'm going to say h tags equals document dot query selector all H1, I think I can do commas in here. H1, H2, H3. But somebody thought it was a good idea. Well, actually, that might have changed. We're going to see. If this throws an error, I'll be able to explain why. In the past, I don't remember if this is still true, but when you do a query selector all, it returns something that looks like an array, but it's not an array. It's something called a node list, I think, as far as the browser is concerned, and you can't call normal array functions on it. Like here, I'm doing a map. You can't do that. You can't do that. You have to do a little hack. And that's what I was just thinking about. So we might have to do that, but I vaguely remember this getting fixed. So we'll see. Okay, so now the actual work is getting the table of contents back. And our goal is to get an array of URLs. And remember earlier with the breadcrumbs, we had that problem where we had to pass stuff in. We're probably going to have to do the same thing here. Again, because all this stuff is specific to documentation, we can build it bespoke, meaning we can pass in custom arguments up here specific to this context. But I wouldn't recommend doing that if you were building a more generic or open-ended kind of site. So we're going to say h tags, map over each. We don't need to use that. We can just use an arrow function because we're not going to reference this. So we're going to say, well, actually I'm going to call that h tag singular. And we want h tag.inner text. So what we're trying to accomplish with all this, when you have an h tag, so let's say we're dealing with an h2 tag, some section of page, right? So in order to build the table of contents out, which is literally the links to that part of that page, we need to create a URL friendly version of it, right? So that's what this whole slug idea is, because what we want to get is something back like h2, we have an a tag in there, and then we have something that looks like some section of page, like this, right? That's technically what's happening back over here, is building something like this out. When it comes to this navigation, we can separate those parts out. We don't have to have one a tag wrapped in an h2 tag, so we don't have to inject the a tag. That's what we're doing back over here for the anchor tag. So I basically say, okay, go ahead and render the anchor link. I'm wrapping around this a link tag, and then I add in the tag content, which is literally like what was the text. So you can see up here I'm using that Cheerio, go away. I'm using that Cheerio method, this.text, which is equivalent to what we're doing back here with htag.innerText. And again, the whole reason to use that Cheerio thing is just so we have some sort of DOM selection API in a server-side environment. So here we're just going to split these parts out. So I want that. That should just work. And we did port that. Yes, we did. And now this should, and we got to get rid of that is client check. So we're going to go like that. We're going to go like that. And just to be safe, I'm going to do that. So make sure we return an array at the very least. Now the question is, does it float? And we can check if we can just log this out. And we're not totally done because remember we still have to do whatchamacallit, the thing we did with the breadcrumbs. That thing. Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. So now let's see if I'm actually right and if I remember how to do this. That's a pain in the ass. So you got to say empty array dot map dot call, passing in the value that you want to pass as the context, then your functions. I'm going to do that as a placeholder. What is this to array nonsense? It's, oh, that's from Cheerio. Okay, so we don't care about that. So we just want this part. Get rid of all that. Looks like that worked. So I'll explain in a second, because that's one of those old man gray beard solutions that you just pick up over the years. Well, that doesn't look very useful. I sit here tooting my own horn. Thing doesn't even work. But that might be correct based on how I wrote that. But if we get an array of objects back, that's a good sign. So, is it just inner HTML for this? And am I calling this on the correct thing? Yep. Haha. Okay. Okay. So now the fun part is that this is not totally kosher. No, what the hell happened there? A class anchor link. How did that? Oh, I see. Okay, so what we're gonna do, I'm gonna use this little trick. Console.dir, I think it means directory view. So that allows us to see the actual in-memory object. So H2, what are you yapping about? What am I looking for? I'm looking for something specific. Inner, yeah, that's what I thought. Inner HTML. Getting started. That's what I thought. Inner text. What the F? Maybe I was right and there was something else wrong. Yeah, what the? I hate computers. I love computers, but I hate computers. And we got to do a trim. So you'll notice there's a blank space before each tag that looks not so good. So we're going to do a trim like that and go, get out of there. So it's like, cut that white space out. Okay, those are looking a little bit better. So again, like I said, this is a half solution right now, but this gives us the majority of what we need to do this sidebar navigation. Now we got to figure out how do we want to do or solve the problem that we solved with the breadcrumbs, and technically it's all in scope. What did I don't see? This is I forget stuff. Man, what am I looking for? Layouts. This. I'm getting all cranky. What am I looking for? What did we do? Okay, so we had the documentation slug up here, and we had the section slug, which is derived from what's in the breadcrumbs array. So we effectively need to get to what? What does table of contents mean? These are just anchor links. There you go. There you go. Oh, we don't care. They're just anchor links. This will work. We should be good. How did that get scooped up in table of contents? I think that's this tag up here. Oh, okay. Amateur. That should be div. There you go. Okay. So difference is I said document, which is the whole thing. And div is literally just the div we've injected the content for the current page into. So all this hoopajoop, that's what we want to actually pull these from. So, good. Live refactor. It worked. I like that. I didn't embarrass myself. Again, I don't have a fragile ego, but I don't want to embarrass myself. I can be a diva sometimes. Just flip out. I love that. Look at that. what are those shows? Like Real Housewives or something. They're always sassy about everything. It's like, I'm not doing that no mo. It's like, cracks me up every time. I don't really watch those, but, you know. I swear, I don't. I watch Gossip Girl, though. I saw they were remaking Gossip Girl. I watched the entirety of Gossip Girl, and I loved it. It's an excellent show. I can't speak for the new one, though. I don't know if that's going to actually be good. Time will tell. All right. See? Buzzing like a bee. Hopefully it's entertaining, though. Yeah, anchor tags. So we can do this whole doodle pretty much on the fly here. It shouldn't really be that big a deal. So we can say table of contents, map, and I'm going to render this. We still have the active problem, but ooh, that'll be interesting because that's going to be different than what we just did. We might dig into... No, I don't think I have that code on this computer. I'll explain a sec. Suspension of disbelief. What is it? Slug and title? So this will be half, right? So that, slug. And we can do that because, again, these are just anchor links. So what this is going to do is it's going to say try and find an anchor link that looks like this URL on the current page. So that's what you get when you do a hash at the beginning of it. So up here it says testing again. If I click this, it changes to getting started. So what we're trying to do is make these automatically jump to parts of this page. So right about now, this should start lighting up. Well, they're not all active. Oh, it's my own fault. There we go. Hot dog. Oh. Why didn't that work? What did you put in there? Oh, maybe this doesn't like these. I might have to actually do them as A tags so they behave properly. Instead of a shameless robot, can't interpret what I write. Yeah, just an A tag. And the reason why kind of makes sense. So before I was using this link component, which is from Next.js, that's using the, at least I think it's using the browser history object. So basically what it's doing is it's saying, so when you call something like history.push in Next.js directly or programmatically, all that's doing is it's adding entries onto the browser history stack. So that's why the name is push. You're literally saying push it into this list. And that's technically what the link tag does, or the link component does when you click on something. So it renders an A tag that does that push for you. And I don't think Next.js understood the hash mark. But that's okay, because a native A tag will do just fine in this case, because we only just want it to work like the native browser functionality, so we don't have to, you know, do a bunch of workarounds. So cool. That is working. But I just noticed once we click on something, our list goes away. So we got to use, and I think I remember this. I don't know if I remember how to do it. Let's try it. So I know there's position sticky, but I always forget how to handle what's the top 50 pixels. I was really hoping that would just work. Oh, doesn't the parent have to be relative or something? Well, wait, what's your height? Is that like 100% of the page? Oh, that's why. Align self flex start. That's right. That's right. Just gonna throw the guns up for a second. That's that gangster shit. Yeah. Uh-huh. Tell your friends. Top of the head. Just like that. Oh, God. I'm going to go to jail for one of these videos. No, I'm not. I'm just going to have to sit down with somebody who wants to have a chat with me, wants to understand what's going on upstairs. You know, maybe get out the paper and pen and write your little prescription, buddy, because you're going to need it. Terrible. Something's got to keep a smile on this face. Something. This is how I do it. This is the magic. This is the recipe. Okay, so now after all of that grandstanding, I'm like, what did I just do? So this is on the aside element underneath documentation content. So let's go to something. And then I think I might be done after this. So next time we'll just focus on search, which is cool because then our attention is focused. Where the hell is this? Where am I? I'm not where I think I am. That sounds bad. I'm having dissociative problems, man. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. This is what happens when they let me out in public. This is it. There's a song about that. There it is. But it looks like we have some. Do we have media queries? No, not yet. So eventually I'm going to have to sit down. I might do that as a live stream and do the mobile CSS for this because I just did it with desktop. But, yeah, that's going to be tedious because usually you want to do your responsive designs mobile first and then go up because it makes it easier to figure out your layouts. But now when you have to smush it back together, it gets kind of challenging. And survey says, yeah, look at that. Okay, so now the tricky part here is we got to say, so if we want to say which one we're on, you know what? I'm gonna take a gamble on this one. I think this will work. And if it does, I just want myself the rest of the night off. Okay? Okay? I work hard. Okay? Do a lot. Do a lot. And then I forget. Oh, wait. I know what to do. So location object has been the hero tonight. There's a hash on here. Yes, there is. Hot damn. Active otherwise. Do that. Oh, wait. We gotta do it like this. So it's got the actual hash mark in there. Yes. That's what I was worried about. It doesn't re-render. So if I do this, but we could write a function. So hard-coded will work fine. See, and this is what I was hinting at earlier. So I think it's still up actually. So before I started CheatCode, I was running a company called Clever Beagle. Technically, CheatCode is Clever Beagle. I just rebranded. Oh man, I'm not gonna remember, am I? Let's see. Ha! I remember. Okay, so I'm pretty sure when I built these docs, and this, I'll be honest, is a friggin' nightmare. Yeah, I did. So notice when I scroll the URL, picks up the tag that it's transitioning into. So that code exists somewhere, but it's buried in this like mess of a PHP and poorly written JavaScript because I slapped this together when I was really angry. That was an interesting time period. But yeah, I kind of want to resurrect that and bring it back into what I'm doing. And now that I'm looking at it, I kind of like these docs. But yeah, we would have to go digging. And I don't want to go digging right now for that. Which I guess is kind of irrelevant relative to what we're trying to do back here. Similar though. So the reason I brought that up is trying to say, like, when we're scrolling, do the same thing, highlight the current item. Which I guess we can do. I don't want to do it right this second, but basically what you do is you check and see, like, on scroll of the page, are we within plus or minus some amount of pixels of this element? If we are, set it to active. If we're not, set whatever the other one is to active. And that's it. So we need to basically check when we click on something. Is that going to work? Maybe. So what I'm thinking is we'll just override this with an on-click handler, set the hash manually ourselves. Well, dang. Yeah, because the location hash. Oh, well, duh. Does Next.js, come on, Next.js, be a bro. Give us the hash. If it gives us the hash, we're in business. If it doesn't, probably shouldn't be saying that on the internet. Do you kids even know what hash is? You even know what hash is? You should. If you're one of those nefarious kids, it's always getting into trouble with the authorities, you most definitely know what hash is. It's not something you play with. You do not. That's from a different time in my life. Okay, I don't do that anymore. I'm a good, upstanding Christian man. I don't cause no trouble. I swear, officer, I don't cause no trouble. Okay, we can technically do. Well, let's check before I say that. No, dang. So nothing. What I'm looking for is the router event firing. A re-render, because that's the problem here, is that we need a re-render to tell us what the current value is. I can do it on state, but it's kind of like, oh, I can do it on state. Yeah, that's gonna suck, but we can do it. Do I have use state here? No. So we're gonna make this up. This is gonna be kind of hacky. I might think of something better later, but. So we're going to say active, I don't know why that sounds cool, active hash. So I'm going to say active hash, set active hash. So by default, this should be location.hash. So then down here, we're going to say active hash. So let's just verify that that works. Seems to. Yes, okay. So now the thought is, well, if I set state, it's going to trigger a re-render. So what I want to do is say on click, and we might just be able to do this, but I'm hoping it doesn't override the default behavior. So we're going to say set active hash. Come on. Come on. Come on. That's right. Ryan 1, computer 0. And I think that, my friends, is a perfect stopping point for the evening. We are just south of 2 hours. I'm a little sleepy. I've said a lot of stupid stuff, and it's only going to get dumber as the night goes on. And we got some work done. Finally, we got some work done. I know we've been fighting all kinds of goofy stuff, but look at that. That's pretty. That's pretty. All right. That's going to do it for me, folks. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't already, make sure to go and hit that subscribe button down below and hit the notification bell. I've been starting to schedule these live streams within an hour or two of me actually doing them, just so it's a little more at the top of your subscriptions list, because if I do them a few days before, it's easy to forget. So hit that notification bell, because I will be letting you folks know within an hour or two of when I'm going to go live. So do that. Make sure you've hit subscribe. Make sure you're following on Twitter at CheatCodeTuts. Make sure you're on the newsletter, cheatcode.co/newsletter. Don't call the authorities. Don't tell them what I say on these. This is between us. Yeah. And so I should see you next week. Because I think now that I've got all this course stuff out of the way, which again, I think I'm going to have launch Tuesday, we should be back to some semblance of a normal chill schedule, at least for a little bit. So you should see me next week, and we're going to pick up on the search feature. So yeah, that's it. Thanks for tuning in.